Afterschool Program Coordinator.
Great. Some of you have driven quite far, so we appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to be with us today. We hope it will be a productive day and you'll be able to take a lot back to your program. We're going to get started with our presentation. I mentioned we were going to start off with just an overview of the new School Age Care Certificate, and I'm going to start off with some introductory remarks. As Linda referenced, we have several members here of our After School Professional Development Task Force, Linda, Venetia, Barbara, and we've had others of you all involved in everything from focus groups and being external reviewers of our competencies and helping to inform our work in the development of the certificate. So some of you were part of our online focus group of community college faculty. We thank all of you for your input from over the years, but it has been a project in the making for several years. Barbara and I were just chatting this morning, trying to come up with a trail of how all of this began, and it goes all the way back to 2006, when the Mott Foundation brought together 3 statewide after-school networks, so similar to what NCCAP is operating in other states, to have discussions about what their school-age care professional development systems look like. The team that went from North Carolina came back very empowered and charged with working to build a professional development system in North Carolina that would be user-friendly, accessible, practical, that would be built with incentives in place to encourage providers to have ongoing professional development. And we used that opportunity to conduct a survey of the field. So we have results from that survey that have helped inform our work as far as what the opportunities, challenges, barriers are to after-school practitioners across the state regarding attainment of professional development. And that led to the creation of this after-school professional development task force that we have going. It is an incredible group to be part of. I'm just so proud to be part of that initiative. It's an incredible group of volunteers that come together from a variety of entities. You'll see them listed in the competencies, which is that spiral-bound booklet with the names of the members and the member organizations listed in that booklet. They couldn't all be here with us today, but they're certainly active in other capacities. Some of them are leading other workshops you'll meet throughout the conference, and others are helping out at registration, so we appreciate their time as well. But moving on to the certificate, so it was dating back to the 2006 and 7 planning and implementation of what a system would look like. And then the Public School Forum, which is the organization in which NCCAP is housed, probably most well known for the Teaching Fellows College Scholarship Program. John Dornan, the Executive Director of the Public School Forum, and I met with Dr. Rawls, President of the Community College System, to have conversations about our vision of a professional development system and the critical role that we saw the community colleges playing in that. And so based on that meeting led to Erin Spear-Smith being appointed to work on our task force with us. And she was wonderful to join us and be with us for about 1.5 years, 2 years or so, and be an instrumental part of developing that school age care certificate, of leading an online focus group, and we'll get into all of those in just a minute or two. We were looking at what the current school age offerings were in North Carolina, specific to school age. And what we found is that the offerings really depended on the campus. So some of the campuses had done more, maybe had a local school age care certificate, had some school age coursework, but we found on the whole, and the feedback from providers across the state, was that the offerings specific to school age were somewhat scattershot, and that oftentimes they were more embedded within early childhood coursework. And so what we saw and the vision we had as a professional development work group is that school age would stand on its own, and that we would have specific school age coursework and specific school age resources that were separate from early childhood, of course, working together as a broader system. And we also found that oftentimes after-school practitioners were unaware of the school-age offerings in their communities. So they maybe were unclear about what school-age offerings were at the colleges, but not just speaking in regards to college coursework. Also, they were a little bit unaware of other after-school trainings, workshops, professional development offerings in their community. And so we'll get into that a little bit more this afternoon in a broader context of what we're trying to do as far as creating a larger inventory and a clearinghouse of information that makes it easier for practitioners to navigate all the different professional development offerings. With that, I'll turn it over to Erin. She's going to walk us through the next few slides.
Way down. Well, good morning. It's so fun to see you guys and be with all of you today. It was really a great opportunity for me to get to go and work with NCCAP and work on this project. And when the very first meeting when I went to the professional development work group, it was just, here's what we need. They had such a clear vision and so many ideas. It was just a matter of how can we put their ideas into our community college system and what can we do to help them. And so we began to bat around some ideas. And there were a couple of things that were very, very clear from that very first meeting when we met with the professional development work group. And one thing was that there were not, as Jamie mentioned, these real consistent courses across the state. And even though some people did have a school-age certificate locally in some colleges, it wasn't necessarily the same courses from college to college. At one college, it would be course A, B, C, D, and the next college, it would be E, F, G, H. And so there wasn't this consistent kind of core body of knowledge across the state in all the colleges. So when we talked about that further, and I kind of said, well, you could get that if that's something you want. They were like, yes, please, let's do that. That's exactly what we would like to have. So that was kind of where we started, is thinking about, well, what can we do that would be consistent from one college to another. And then also at the same time this was happening, there were these competencies that you're going to hear a lot more about today, and I hope you can go to the session after this session is over to get the real meat of those competencies. But those competencies were being developed, and a huge part of this group was to figure out how can we also get these competencies embedded in the state as well. We've worked hard on these, we're working hard on these. These are the things that people who are working with school-age children should know and be able to do, and that really needs to be somehow embedded within courses and within CEU trainings and within trainings that are happening in the state. So how can we do that? So we really took the draft at that time, those competencies that all of you have today now, real pretty in your packet, and started to think about, okay, which courses do we currently have in our community college system that seem to really relate well to these competencies that they've laid out. And that's kind of where we started with that. We also knew that we wanted to build on what we had. We had some pieces in place in North Carolina. We had BSAC, which wasn't really in our community college system, but some of you are using that in some of your school-age courses. You're doing BSAC as part of a training piece of your courses. And then we had the school-age credential, right? We already had that, which was 2 classes in our community college system, 145, Child Development 2, and then either 235 or 263, the school-age administration or school-age program class. So we had that. And then now we had just gone through SIP. And what happened during SIP for school-age? We got a whole new degree, a whole school-age education degree. So we had these two kind of extremes, right? We had the school-age, the credential, and then we had a degree, but we didn't have anything really in between. And so this was kind of where we wanted to take what we had and build on it, and then make sure that that would build into the school-age degree, so that everything would be flow very nicely from one to the next. So that was kind of our second goal. And then thirdly, we didn't want to stop there. We wanted to start to think about what do we do with these students who really know that school age is their career. This is what they want to do. And how can we help them to go on and obtain an even higher degree? And so as part of a work group, which you'll hear a little bit more about in a minute, we actually established started to do some conversations with some four-year schools about, how can we maybe take the school age degree or at least a school age certificate or something in our community college system and work off of that and help people move into maybe a 4-year degree program. So those were kind of our basic goals. So our timeline was a while. It took a while to do this work, as good work often takes. So we actually started off with the professional development group that I met with at NCCAP decided we need a little work group that'll just focus on this work. And so we had a creation of a work group that included myself, a representative from NC State, Ed Maxa, several folks from NCCAP, including Jamie, and other folks. Barbara was was in that work group. We had several folks that came together. We brought in some people, Rosa Andrews, we pulled her in at one point. So we brought in folks to really talk about how to do this work and how to create. And from that group, we created a draft of what is now the School Age Care Certificate. Also, when we kind of created that, we decided we really needed feedback. We needed feedback from the faculty. We wanted to know what you guys thought about this, how you felt about it. Would this be possible in your college? Do you think this would meet the needs of the school age providers in your community at your college? All those things. So we created, using our SIP Blackboard site, which hopefully all of you do go to often and have access to. We created a little online focus group, basically. It was hard to pull everybody together. It still is, but at that time, remember, we were under major budget. Transportation was a no-no at that point, so we did it online. And we had 10 faculty folks participate in that focus group, and that was a great opportunity for us. In that focus group, we basically shared information about NCCAP because some faculty did not know about NCCAP, and some of the initiatives they were working on at that time, which included these competencies. It also included an online training database, which you'll hear about, I think, later today, that you can put your courses into, and then also this draft of this School Age Care Certificate. So we basically did this online focus group, and if you were a participant, several of you were, would you raise your hand if you were a participant in that online faculty focus group? Yay! Thank you for doing that. That was very, very helpful, and it really gave us some feedback. So from that, we'll move to the next slide, which talks a little bit about what we gained from that focus group. The first thing we gained were specific suggestions about how we should tweak what we had at the time of that draft of that School Age Care Certificate, and how we should tweak it and what we should do and what are some options. So what you have today, now that we have in our system is based on the tweaks that we did from that faculty focus group. We also shared a draft of a new course. One of the things that we found within this process was that we had a course, Health, Safety, Nutrition. Everybody is familiar with that class, that we had in the system. But the problem with that is that some of the competencies, and as you get more familiar with the competencies, you'll see that some of the competencies specific with school age went beyond what was covered in Health, Safety, Nutrition for school age children. And as we try to be one for everyone, it's hard to get all that content sometimes in one course. So there was kind of this idea of basically creating a new course. This was the only new course created for this certificate. All the other courses already existed. And it was basically to try to really focus in on school-age children, but the health, safety, lifestyles, obesity, physical activity, cooking, nutrition, all these things that go beyond just sometimes what we focus birth to 8 and health, safety, nutrition could do. And that class was EDU 158, Healthy Lifestyles Youth, and that class was created. So we tweaked and drafted that as well within this. So we learned about those and what you guys thought of those things in this group. We also learned from you all that you all really thought that we needed to market these classes. And Jamie mentioned earlier the fact that a lot of times in your communities, it's not that you weren't offering school-age courses, but they didn't know you were offering them. They didn't know it would be for school-age providers. And we've heard that for years in several pockets of the state, including where I am in Johnston. Those EDU classes, they're all for early childhood. They're all for the infants and toddler people and the preschool people. They're not for the school-age people. And so it was important to get the word out that we do have classes for those who are working with school-age children, and they are appropriate, and we're here to serve you. So we started talking about marketing. We also had several requests from that focus group about needing training, and hence here we are today. This is directly out of that focus group came the need for you guys saying, we'd like to know more about what's happening in the school age workforce in our state and what's going on at NCCAP and about these competencies so that we're making sure that we're up to speed, and then we can make local decisions based on those things that are going on. And then lastly, and probably maybe even most important, I'm not sure, we'll see, is that we talked a lot about the need for possibly people who fund school-age programming in our state, and there are various funding sources for school-age programming, to consider incentivizing or requiring in some way some school-age coursework. In other words, if we can have the classes at our colleges all day long, but if nobody has to come and take them, they may not make. And so how can can we try to incentivize and make sure that these courses are not only exist, but they are being offered actively and often within our community settings. So